Hello and welcome once again to Dialogus and Worldview. You're watching with me, Vishal Dahiya. This week, we're going to talk about India and Philippines strategic tango. In fact, the Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. was on a 5-day long visit to New Delhi and other places in India. And this assumes a lot of significance because this was not only the longest visit by a Philippine president, but also because of the fact that both sides are celebrating almost 75 years of their diplomatic relationship. Both sides are equally important to each other, that is, India and Philippines. During this visit, there have been a lot of agreements which have been signed. Also, significantly, both navies have recently conducted a joint naval exercise in the South China Sea. And from the Indo-Pacific angle, from India's maritime security point of view, Philippines is a very important state in that particular region. So we'll look at all those elements. We'll look at South China Sea. We'll look at the bilateral relations and try and understand as to why Philippines is important for India and what does India bring to the table for Philippines. Of course, we cannot forget the BrahMos missile, which Philippines has bought from India. So for all detailed aspects, analysis of all these aspects, we're joined by two distinguished experts today. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with we have with us former Ambassador Jitendranath Misra, who keeps a very close watch on the developments in the region, is a well-known voice in the diplomatic circles, and has a very important point of view on all these things which we're going to talk about. We are also joined by Captain Alok Bansal. He's also the director of India Foundation, again, a very renowned strategic analyst and somebody who keeps a close eye on the developments in India's neighborhood as well. Welcome, both of you gentlemen, to Worldview. I'll begin with you, Ambassador Jitendranath Misra. People sometimes tend to miss out on these visits, which come in from smaller countries, India's neighborhood, unless it is from somebody from Bangladesh or somebody from Sri Lanka who's coming in to say Cambodia, Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam. So my question is, this time around, the Philippine president's visit is making a lot of noise, not only in India, but outside India as well. Why so?
Thank you very much, Vishalji, for inviting me on the show. You are absolutely correct. And it's very frustrating for me, being someone who loves Southeast Asia, that we do not give Southeast Asia the kind of visibility in our foreign policy discourse that it deserves, because it is really, really very important. And it is the part of the world that gives us some privileged access. For example, currently the Philippines. Why? Why was this visit so important? Why was it so visible? Let's ask that question. And you said the world over, not just in India. Currently, we are talking about President Trump and tariffs. India is under tremendous pressure. Russia is, I would say, a half friend right now. Right now, things can change. And China is definitely a competitor, or worse. Pakistan, of course, has deep hostility towards India. And countries like France, Israel, and other strategic partners, this word, phrase, strategic partners is overused. Of course, it's been used here in the context of the Philippines. It's overused because what does it really mean? We have to really look at actions and not words, and not just joint statements. They are all fine. They are decorative. But what actually happens? Yes, during the visit of the president, just as he came into India, we concluded a naval exercise, the first one ever with the Philippines in the South China Sea to the west of the islands and in territory claimed by China. This is very intriguing because India generally takes a very, very cautious line in the South China Sea, I've observed, even with regard to Vietnam. Now, what kind of message is it? We are telling the Americans, you may not be the reliable ally of the Philippines that we are seeking to be. We are telling China, our Prime Minister is going most likely for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, but we have options. The Chinese media is very derogatory towards India. They're saying India is not on the table, India is on the menu as far as the Trump tariffs are concerned. Are we on the menu? I don't think so. And this may be a bad phase, but I don't think so at all. We have options. This is also a clear message to countries even like South Korea, Japan, Australia. All these countries have been strategic partners of the Philippines for much longer. India just became a strategic
Okay.
partner. So, therefore, it's very important looking at it structurally, regionally, and globally.
Okay, okay. So there are very, interconnected issues when we look at, Southeast Asia, specifically Philippines here, China angle, the US angle, the, of course, defense ties as well. We'll take them one by one. Let's bring in, Captain Bansal here. Captain Bansal, let's start by, taking the bull by its horns, and let's look at China first, because as Mr. Mishra was pointing out, joint naval exercises in the South China Sea during Philippine President Marcos Jr.'s visit to India. Once again, overwhelmingly supported the United Nations Charter as far as free and fair movement in the maritime domain area is concerned. China, on the other hand, has recently termed Philippines as an irritant in the South China Sea. Not very happy with India's stand and the joint naval exercises. Are we making the right moves again this time around as far as Southeast Asia is concerned?
Oh, well, Philippines is a very, very important country as far as Southeast Asia is concerned. And we have a lot of convergence of interests, actually. India has always supported freedom of navigation as far as Southeast Asia is concerned. And we have also supported the arbitration award, which give against China, which Philippines had taken to Permanent Court of Arbitration. So we have said that we have supported Philippines' stance as far as South China Sea is concerned. And I think the bilateral trade, the bilateral relationship has been growing over the years. And now that we have signed a strategic partnership agreement, we come even closer. As we talk, I think 3 naval ships were in Philippines exercising with Philippines Navy. And what's important is Philippines is one of the few countries which India is providing substantive defense exports, I think. So if you look at it, I think in terms of sheer numbers or volumes, probably it will be amongst the top few. So we are providing them BrahMos. We have given them, our trade also is rising. We have a small but a significant Indian diaspora. We have historical and cultural relations as far as Philippines is concerned. And Philippines actually needs support. In fact, Philippines, based on political dispensation, there was, of course, a time when Philippines political dispensation was very close to China. It has now moved away from it. So it's looking at other countries who can provide that support to Philippines to counter the Chinese aggression. And of course, US could have been one, but under Trump administration and his transactional foreign policy, I think the ideal option for Philippines would be someone else. And I think in India, they find an ideal strategic partner, and that's where they are reaching out to us. We have been providing training facilities to Philippines armed forces personnel, and in other fields, ITech courses have been provided to Philippines. So we have a reasonably strong relationship between India and Philippines. And
Okay.
I think now with this visit of the Philippines president, it's bound to go a few notches up.
Okay, okay. Mr. Mishra, since we're talking about the defense ties here, one very important aspect is that Philippines is one of the first countries to have bought the BrahMos missile system. And the Philippine president minced no words when he praised not only Operation Sindoor, but also, the role played by the BrahMos missile system in that conflict. So that's one part. Second part is that both sides have agreed to take the cooperation to the next level, that is a strategic level as far as defense ties goes. A few more agreements have been signed, and Philippines has clearly said that it wants to go ahead and boost its defense capacities, and it would be looking towards India for a lot of defense equipments or platforms. So therein lies one more boost to the Atmanirbharta or self-reliance in defense production for India. One more feather in the cap again, which we are looking at as far as Southeast Asia is concerned. We're making use of the situation in a very pragmatic way, right?
You're absolutely right. The Philippines is the first customer for the BrahMos missile. And here is the story. emanating from the Philippines, not from India. They're saying that it's an excellent platform. I just saw the statement today. I don't remember the language. And this is the first time they've openly said that, as far as I know. And of course, as you said, it was battle tested. And this is a message not just for the Philippines positively, but also for other countries in the region, positively and negatively. Negatively for countries like China, obviously, because there are reports that we took out some Chinese systems in Pakistan during the Operation Sindoor. And the air defense says that the MQ-9 system could not intercept the BrahMos. It was really very successful by all yardsticks, all reports. Now, positively, well, Indonesia and Vietnam and perhaps other countries in South America and the Middle East are looking at the BrahMos, and indeed also at the Akash missile. The Philippines are looking at the Akash missile. So you said it's very important. Why this visit becomes important is because it's the first customer for a battle-tested and excellent world-class weapon system that has performed well. This can open the doors to others, for others to understand the reliability of Indian defense platforms in performance. Armenia is a major customer, as you know. So there could be others. Atmanirbhar Bharat is very important because we strategic coercion from, trade coercion is actually strategic coercion for me from the United States right now, because there is no trust. And China, of course. If we want to be a great power, we have to have a defense military industrial base. We produce enough to sustain a war if it is a long war, because others can close the tap anytime. The Soviet Union did it in 1971, the Americans did it in 1965, and so on and so forth. So we can't depend on anyone except ourselves.
Okay, we'll come to the trade part a bit later, but since we're talking about defense and all those issues, Captain Bansal, another significant statement which was made by President Marcos Jr. while he was in India, where he said in an interview also that it is not Asia Pacific, it is Indo-Pacific. Now, that assumes a lot of significance from India's maritime interests, security interests. How would you describe, the importance of Philippines as far as India's maritime security interests are concerned?
See, there is no doubt that when we look at Indo-Pacific, and Philippines is a very, very important country. We have always talked of ASEAN centrality as far as Indo-Pacific is concerned. And Philippines being an island nation, in fact, being an archipelago state, has a huge role to play. And as I said, that both India and Philippines have a robust defense collaboration. And considering the threats that the two countries face, sometimes from common foes like China, and right now the economic threat that both the countries are facing from US, because Philippines has also been slapped with 19% tariffs. India was, of course, originally slapped with 25%. Now we have another 25%. So we are actually withstanding a tariff war. So we have huge scope for both economic as well as strategic collaboration. And as you rightly brought out, that BrahMos, Philippines was probably one of the first countries to receive BrahMos, and they have very positive reports. And BrahMos have proved exemplarily well as far as Op Sindoor was concerned. And I think now Philippines is looking at other India-built hardware, especially Akash, etc., which have been battle tested. Now, Philippines could be the beginning of a process which could probably see Indian goods being exported to other ASEAN countries. And I think there could be a lot of joint collaborative ventures which could help India to export its items to other ASEAN countries as well through Philippines. There could be joint production facilities that could be set up. There could be further collaborations which could take up. So I think as far as India-Philippines relations are concerned, we are on the same page as far as our perception of the international affairs is concerned. Our reading of the regional equation is concerned. We both believe that India has a role to play as far as Indo-Pacific is concerned, because Asia-Pacific construct actually excludes India. While it includes China and other countries, it excludes India. And I think that's the right approach. I think so. Both India and Philippines are on the same page.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not too very sure how much Philippines will be withstand the US pressure should the tariff wars get aggravated, because Philippines economy is also quite integrated with the US apart from China. Both of them, I think economically they have huge relationship. And of
Mhm.
course, historically, they have had very strong security relations with the US in the past. So
Okay.
those issues come into play. But I think we have a huge convergence, and I think that's what's growing. And I think going forward, we will see India Philippines relations grow, and which will probably provide a role model for other ASEAN countries to follow suit.
Okay, wonderful. Let me take that last thought to Ambassador Mishra there. Vis-a-vis Manila and Washington, and of course the trade ties and the entire tariff angle. Ambassador Mishra, given the global outrage and the kind of pull and push which is happening on Trump tariffs, and as Captain Bansal was also pointing out, we are now facing an onslaught of beyond 50%. As far as Philippines is concerned, it's around 19%. During this visit, both sides agreed that let's sign a preferential trade agreement, that is PTA. They'll start working on that. Apart from that, there's this, bilateral trade is somewhere around $1.3 billion, if I'm not wrong. But traditionally, in terms of security and in terms of trade as well, Manila and Washington seemingly have closer ties. So how does this metrics, work and evolve from here onwards? And what is in it for India?
Well, absolutely. Trade between the Philippines and India is actually $3.3 billion in the financial year 24-25, according to our joint statement that I saw today. That's not a lot. And the reason why they signed this, there's the intent to sign this agreement is exactly the reason why we have signed such an agreement with the UK. We are negotiating with the European Union, and we signed an agreement with Australia and the European trade area. I don't remember the exact name, the Nordic countries, Northern Europe countries. So the
Mhm.
idea is to diversify because with 100%, with 50% tariffs, and even more could come according to the latest threat by President Trump. So your goods are going to have such high tariffs. You can't compete with anybody in the US market. So your exports are going to tank. Pharmaceuticals are off the list, but temporarily. But we don't know what's going to happen. So therefore, it's very important to find new markets, and the Philippines could be potentially a market because the base is very low right now. The base of trade is very low. But will the Philippines, which is integrated so deeply with China in terms of supply chains and with the US, be able to diversify to give India a somewhat more privileged position in trade? I am not sure. I don't
Okay.
have a good answer to that. But at the strategic level, relations are on a very much are on a sounder footing, I would say. They are on a sound footing currently. I'll say more on that a little later.
Okay, okay. But Ambassador Mishra, that's an area of concern or a gray area, I would say, which you are also pointing out. Captain Bansal is also saying that given the history of relations, both trade and security wise between Manila and Washington, perhaps we will have to be watchful of the fact as to how Philippines might react to more pressure tactics from the Trump administration or USA on trade issues, if at all they come their way. That's something which we'll have to keep a watch, because that's a very quickly evolving and developing story there. But when we talk about the bilateral relations between India and Philippines, apart from defense and strategic issues, and of course trade aspects, what more opportunities lie there? What is it that we can exploit in the relationship for the betterment of both the countries, and specifically safeguarding our interests also?
Well, I think we could look at strategic issues more deeply. You said apart from that, because that is actually right now, as you and Captain Bansal said, the BrahMos is kind of the showpiece of the strategic relationship, because it is the only substantive, as Captain Bansal rightly said, export to any country apart from Armenia. We haven't had substantive offensive capability platforms. That is, we've had boots and other things. So if it opens doors, and secondly, we could look at joint operability. I'm looking at the joint statement. India has kind of paid back for the BrahMos to the Philippines by giving explicit support on the South China Sea, which we gave last year, as you know. That's very important. That is a kind of a force multiplier, strategically very important for the Philippines. And this joint statement said, quote unquote, final and binding. The tribunal award of 2016 is final and binding. Nothing could be more explicit than that. They're talking about a rule-based order in the Indo-Pacific, support freedom of navigation. The language of the past, same kind of language. So joint military exercises, interoperability, maritime security, co-development and co-production of systems. Well, we've started doing it with Vietnam. Remember, we have given them 12 guard boats under a $100 million credit, defense credit. And Vietnamese friends are very happy. They said this is the first time that you have actually given us some technology, maybe a little bit more than nuts and bolts, not a lot, but at least something. So if we can try something like that with the Philippines, as long as they are willing to stand up to China. But it could change. If Dutertes comes back to power, it's a democratic country, things can. President Marcos's policy towards China is stable, and that's why the Chinese are howling. I mean, they're making a lot of noise. The Philippines is a troublemaker. The so-called joint patrol is a threat to regional peace and stability. This is the statement of the Southern Theater Command the other day after the India-Philippines exercises. So they are quite rattled by it. They pretend not to be bothered, but they are rattled. And we must do that for its payback for what they do in the Indian Ocean.
Okay. So that's a very significant policy aspect there. But Captain Bansal, apart from defense and strategic ties and trade ties, do you think one area requires a bit more attention? Because as you were also pointing out, the presence of Indian diaspora in Philippines is not very significant. Perhaps we can build more on the people to people connect aspect out there. More, exchanges in terms of services and service personnel as well in service sectors, service areas. More robust Indian diaspora can go a long way in influencing the foreign policy for Philippines in the long run.
Undoubtedly, I think we can have, and in fact, as the relationships improve, I think many Indian corporates may like to set up production facilities in Philippines. If we have a bilateral free trade agreement or preferential trade agreement, and because they could use Philippines as a launch pad for accessing the entire ASEAN market, and through all those countries with which ASEAN has a free trade agreement or has a preferential trade agreements. So you would see in days to come that Indian corporates would start investing in Philippines, and as they start investing, you will see the movement of people also. And as movement builds up, the diaspora would also build up, and Indian diaspora has shown globally that wherever they are, even if they would have gone there as indentured labor, in due course of time, they have emerged as policymakers and a dominant factor in the country's domestic policies. So I think Indian diaspora, even at present, though it's limited in number, it's a very powerful and an important segment as far as Philippines is concerned. But it would probably grow more and more as we have. At the same time, large number of Filipinos coming to India under ITEC and other arrangements would also give them greater exposure of India. On our part, India Foundation every year actually organizes an India ASEAN Youth Summit where we call a certain number of people from Philippines every year to come and meet and interact with Indian youth. Now, this sort of relationship actually gets developed and grows in days to come, because we also need to expand our soft power and soft power footprints in Philippines. We have very strong soft power footprints in many Southeast Asian countries, but probably in Philippines we need to expand. I think cultural interactions and things like that. I think that needs to be expanded as far as India-Philippines relations are concerned.
Okay, okay. So there it is, Captain Bansal, as you're pointing out, as far as soft power dynamics and soft power, diplomacy is concerned, we perhaps need to do a little bit more out there vis-a-vis Philippines, and work more on people-to-people connect, strengthening the Indian diaspora, and as both of you gentlemen are pointing out, the key ideas, the key issues here is the strategic importance of the relationship between India and Philippines. For India, Philippines is really important from the maritime security point of view in Indo-Pacific. Philippines would look forward to more support from India as far as their tiff with China is concerned in South China Sea, and we have minced no words this time around. But again, the X factor remains the tariff war with the United States of America and its President Donald Trump at play. We will have to see and keep a very close watch as to how things move from here onwards on trade aspect, on economy aspect. Thank you once again, Captain Bansal and Ambassador Mishra, for joining us and sharing your valuable inputs and time with us and our viewers. We'll come back again next week with a different, geopolitical international issue and try and analyze and understand as to what it means for us and for our country and for the world at large. Keep watching Worldview and Dialogus. Thank you.